What's up, y'all? Man, I'm here to talk about Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier, the trilogy, the third fight. I'm gonna break it down for y'all, man. This is the third fight. DC took the first one. Stipe took the second one, man. This is such an awesome fucking fight, man. I'm a big DC fan. I'm gonna say it right now. I love me some DC, man. You know, I'm from California. You know, he trains in San Jose, so you know who I'm gonna be going with. I went with DC the first time, and I went with DC the second time. He ended up losing that time, but this is his last fight, guys. I truly believe this is gonna be his last. I don't think he's gonna fight John a third time, man. I think it depends on how much they pay him, but I feel like he's gonna make a lot of good money in this Stipe fight. They always pay him good. They always treat him the right way. He's a company man. DC, just a good human being overall, in my humble opinion. But you know, I think this is one of the greatest heavyweight trilogies of all time, man. This is, I think this tops Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos, and it's crazy. That's kind of one of the first fights I ever saw was Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos on Fox, and how Junior knocked him out. I was like, what? That's crazy as a kid, and I think it's dope that they're doing this trilogy. You know, I have friends, and even my own pops was like, "Yo, this is bullshit. Francis and Ngannou should be fighting Stipe in a rematch." But I think this is the best decision when you think about it. Like DC and Stipe had that second fight. The second one was such a great fucking fight, bro. I love that fight. I had that in my opinion, my fight of the year candidates. It didn't win, but it was up there. It was in my top 10, and I don't know, man. You know, when you look at this fight, obviously DC's the better wrestler, and you look at it, but he has good decent hands. But then you look at Stipe is the better boxer, Golden Glove boxing champion from Cleveland, and but Stipe can wrestle. So really, I think they're evenly matched. I think one can hurt the other. Do I see this going as a knockout? No, I don't. I don't see that. But the way I see this fight going is the first way. When this fight first got announced, I was just like DC got hands, but like we've never really seen him. Like he reminds me a lot of Randy Couture, man. Pure dirty boxing, but with just better wrestling. And I always thought DC would beat him in a decision. You know, I always just grind him out and put it on him, like how we did Alexander Gustafsson in their fight, and it's very similar, man. But you know, very good hands from Alex, but Alex don't got that power that Stipe got. You know, Alex, you know, he can knock you out with a combination and like the duration of a fight. Stipe has that like one hit or quit. If he hits you in the chin, he hits you in the chin, bro. I think DC has a really decent chin at heavyweight. I think he's always had a good chin. I've never believed in the weight cut stuff, but when I look at this fight, I think DC's going to use a lot of his wrestling in this fight. We haven't seen him grind anyone out since was it the Anderson fight? Yeah, I think it's the Anderson fight, and you can look at those Rumble Johnson fights, also, but especially that first one. But Rumble, he gave up a lot of certain positions and stuff like that. I don't think Stipe is gonna do that. You could see a submission from DC. Man, DC is really good at getting that back and choking people out. So we could see that from DC, but I really do see DC using his wrestling, man. I think he said it, man. You bring your wrestling shoes, so it's gonna be interesting. But it's not like Stipe can't wrestle. But and Rumble had a wrestling background too. Let's not forget that. So we've seen DC out wrestle guys that have wrestling backgrounds, but we've seen DC struggle with people like John Jones, who do have like decent wrestling backgrounds, but was able to stuff. Doesn't have like the what's it called accolades that DC got in the wrestling world, and he was able to stop him. And when they fought, obviously MMA wrestling is completely different from freestyle wrestling, folk style wrestling, Greco. It's a completely different thing at this point. But I think Stipe can do that. I think he has a really good chance of stopping those takedowns. But I really do think the wrestling from DC is gonna help him a lot, man. But you also gotta look at that second fight too. If you look at what I think Stipe did really, really well is weathering that storm in those first 3 rounds, and dealing with that pressure and made an amazing adjustment, going to the body and stuff like that. And he was able to win that fight, and he was able to outwork and break DC almost in the second fight, and that's kind of hard to come back from. But then you look at that first fight, where I feel like he kind of played into DC's hands, where he kind of went in the clinch. Now, we've never seen anyone get knocked out in the clinch with DC. He had a pretty good hook against Bigfoot Silva. I don't think that was in the clinch, though. Go look back at that DC Gustafsson fight. The amount of shots that Gus took in the clinch, the uppercuts. But the shot that DC hit Stipe was a hook, I think. So, but man, he played into that game. So these guys can make mistakes, but I think we're gonna get the best version of them. I feel like they have to be looking at that tape, and they have to have learned. I think we're gonna see the best version. I think Stipe, all he really has to do is basically he's gonna, and that's a tall task to ask for someone, but he has to weather the storm again, and he has to outwork DC. Man, I think DC didn't come in the best shape. I should say this. It's not that he didn't come in the best shape for that fight. I think he came in better shape for even the first Stipe fight, which some people would be like, what? And then the Derek Lewis fight. The reason why I feel like he came in better shape for the first Stipe fight is I feel like he was still figuring out how he's going to do his heavyweight weight regimen. So he didn't that was kind of new territory for him. Even though he's been a heavyweight before, I think he was still trying to figure out with science. And, he has a nutritionalist. So, but I'm not sure about all the facts. But I'm just saying from what I've seen, he was chunky, man. He was chunky. And then Derek, he was super chunky. I think he was pretty big. But I think for that second fight, DC knew he's going to go 5 rounds with Stipe. I think he knew that. I think he knew he wasn't going to catch Stipe with the same shot he did last time. Right? But Stipe, that's why I think he came at 237. I'm positive DC came at that, and then Stipe came at maybe 235, 2 pounds less or something like that. So they both are super low. But I think for this fight, I think DC knows this is going to be a grind out, and he needs to even go harder than that. From what he did in that other camp, he needs to even go harder. This has to be light heavyweight. We need light heavyweight DC. Because he's going to have to outwork him. And that's the biggest problem with going up to weight class. You don't know how hard these guys are working in camp. I don't think Kevin Lee worked as hard as he did for the Greg Gillespie camp than he did for the Dos Anjos camp. Because, I've wrestled before, and when I'm cutting weight, I got to run those extra miles. But if I'm not cutting weight, why do I have to run those extra miles if I'm not, if I'm not losing weight? The reason why I should have ran those extra miles and why it could have helped me was because it could have helped me with my gas tank. I had a better gas tank when I was in a lower weight class because I got to work more. You know what I'm saying? Some guys, they don't put in the same work as they did because they're thinking that they have the same mentality that it's more about the, what's it called? It's about the cut than anything. Those miles aren't just for the cut. They're also for other things, for your stamina, for how you do in, high pressure situations and how you react. You know what I'm saying? Instead, I see a lot of guys, they put more hours in technique. And putting more hours in technique is good, and learning stuff is good, but it's just we can have fun, and we can, if you've ever rolled, there's you can spar and compete with guys, and they got the first class where they teach you the techniques and stuff like that, and then you got the next hour where everyone's rolling, they're competing against each other. But then there's this in between where you kind of flow with each other, and I think for DC and for a lot of these guys that go up, they're trying to they think the problem is that they're not doing enough technique, and you gain more. But honestly, that hard work you put in for the other weight class, the lower weight classes, it's super significant in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? And I think with DC, I think he's gonna come in here at light heavyweight shape. I think DC at light heavyweight is always good. I don't think he hurt himself too much, man. The guy wrestled at 185 when he was in college. It's not like he can't make 205. Even if right now, if I told him, DC, okay, you can make 205. He's 40, 42, 41, something like that. I still think he can do it. It's not impossible. But, for Stipe, I think you have to, if I'm Stipe, I'm challenging that. I'm challenging how hard this guy's working like I did the first time. If I'm DC, I'm challenging that wrestling, man. That first round in the second fight, he did so good with getting that high crotch. and picking him up and slamming him and controlling him on the ground. Like, he did so good in that area. Yeah, Stipe was defending and stuff like that, but, we never know. Like, if you would have kept maintaining that same pressure, you probably would have broke him. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's both ways for these guys to win. I think this is such an interesting fight. This is such a great fucking fight. I can't wait for this fight. It's also in the small cage. You also got to think of it like that. So, I don't know. It's a hard fight for me to pick. But, DC's my boy, man. I want to see DC win so badly. And I feel like the community is starting to appreciate DC more often. Let me take this off. More often now. I think, the sad thing about the DC stuff, the DC hate, is I've seen some people say, oh, Curtis Blades is going through the same thing. Curtis Blades is not on the level of a Daniel Cormier in terms of wrestling. It's just, he's not. Like, Curtis Blades is a JUCO wrestler. I think JUCO runner-up in their national tournament or whatever in the community college. That's not the same thing as a Division I college wrestler, a guy that's a Greco-Roman champion, has competed in the Olympics, made the Olympic team, got bronze. You know what I'm saying? They're not at the same level, right? And what DC was able to do to Dan Henderson, Curtis Blades could never do that to anyone. That's good wrestling versus bad wrestling. I don't think Curtis has bad wrestling, but it's not on the same level as DC. You know what I'm saying? And I think now I think we can appreciate DC for what he's been able to accomplish in his career. At first I think we never didn't appreciate him, and I think we're going to, and I think he's going to use his wrestling, and I think he's going to win this fight. I got DC winning this. I'm going to go DC on this one. I'm rooting for him, and I'm a little biased. I'm a DC fan. You can find a lot of motivation in what he's done, and how he's battled through situations. But you also have to respect Stipe at the same time. You can't discount Stipe, man. That guy, I think he is the greatest heavyweight of all time. I used a big proponent of Cain Velasquez. I just used to love how Cain Velasquez would just grind on people and break people, and just apply that pressure, man. As a kid, I used to love wrestling, and then seeing Brock Lesnar compete in the cage, and then seeing Cain Velasquez destroy him. I'm like, oh my God, this Mexican is the GOAT, bro. He's the greatest of all time. So, it is what it is. But I think Stipe, after that second one, I think he proved it on that day. He was the greatest heavyweight of all time, man. And even if he loses this one, I still put him. I think DC's more like Randy Couture. For me, like, man, you gotta put in work in your division, man. You gotta have them title defenses, man. DC did defend the title at light heavyweight and at heavyweight, but it's like, it is like even Cejudo. Like, he's not in the Mount Rushmore as much as I think he's great. Like, I can't put him there. Even Conor, I think Stipe is the heavyweight GOAT. I think he really proved it. He really proved it last summer. Like, man, like, a lot of people doubted him. I doubted him, and he proved everybody fucking wrong. And he showed a lot of toughness in that fight. And I'm a DC fan, but there were some eye pokes in that second fight, and even the first fight, I think he learned it from John Jones. That's my theory on it. But he showed his toughness, and I got a lot of respect for him. So if Stipe wins or loses this one, no matter what, I hope these guys go off on the sunset, both retire. As much as I'd love to see Stipe versus Francis too, I think if Derek Lewis can beat Alexei Oleinik, I think they could do Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou for the vacant title, 5 rounds. We saw the first 2 rounds wasn't good, but you give them extra 2 more rounds. They can't do that forever, hopefully. But at the end of the day, I think DC's gonna win this, but we should appreciate what these guys have accomplished in their careers. At this point, I'm just rambling on. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. See y'all. eBay Predictions is out.